how to make such sleeves with the frills and the cuffs at the bottom. We've already showed you this blouse. We're going to make a sleeve of the light fabric. This is a basic pattern for the sleeve. We want the frill to be only at the bottom, not on the sleeve cap. To make such sleeves, we need to cut the pattern into approximately equal sections, not cutting through the sleeve cap. Spread the sections apart to make the frill. This is the easiest way to make such sleeves. The design depends on the fabric softness and on how far apart you spread the pieces. You can, for example, sew a sheath dress with B-shape sleeves. Such dress would look amazing. In my case, an average distance between the sections is 3 cm. Make sure that the center sleeve is placed right on the lengthwise grain. I'll pin the pattern to the fabric and cut it right away. Do not forget about 1 cm seam allowance for all edges. Be sure to mark the center sleeve. And the front side. Do it by making small notches. Next, we're going to show you how to make the cuffs. Natalie will help me do it. To make a cuff, you need to measure the arm circumference and loosen it slightly to make it comfortable. Do not place the tape too tight. 25 centimeters, perfect. The cuff should be cut on the lengthwise grain. In our case, the modeling fabric stretches in all directions. For it not to stretch too much, we need to cut it on the lengthwise grain. We are also going to double it with the interfacing material. The length of the cuff is 25 centimeters. Do not forget about the seam allowance. 5 mm would be enough. You can make cuffs of any width you want. In our case, it's 2 centimeters. So the cut details should be 5.5 centimeters wide. 2 centimeters for the right side, 2 centimeters for the wrong side, and the seam allowances. I think that 7 mm would be perfect. The width and the length of the cuff may be different. We just show you the techniques. Just remember that you need to cut 2 layers, both for the sleeve and the cuff. You should also remember that you're going to make 2 sleeves. Next, we need to cut the interfacing material. It should also be cut on the grain. If your fabric is strong, you can use thin interfacing material. Attach it in any case. It is a must. In this blouse, the bodies were doubled with silk, and the cuffs were doubled with silk first, and then with the thin interfacing material. Let's go to the ironing desk. Natalie is attaching the interfacing material with an iron. When you double the cuffs, cut all the extra pieces from the edges. When you do it, fold the seam allowance and press it.
Срезаем лишнее, чуть-чуть останавливаем.
I remind you that you should cut 2 layers of fabric.
В 2 раза сложенный. Останавливать.
Be very careful and attentive. Natalie has folded and ironed the seam allowance. Watch the way she's doing it. It's important to do it right away. The width of the seam allowance is 7 millimeters.
О, отлично. Теперь сразу заутюжить.
Next, we need to fold the cuff in half and iron it. Do not forget about the seam allowance when doing it. Such preparatory work is very important. It makes the further work much easier. We can start stitching now. Take out the pins. Detach the pattern. We can start stitching the details now. The width of the seam is 1 centimeter. Make a back stitch at the beginning and the end of the seam. As I've already said, the width of the seam is 1 centimeter. Natalie is stitching the underarm seam. When it's done, she'll show you how to stitch the cuff to the sleeve. Let's stitch the edges of the cuff. The width of the seam is 5 millimeters. Do not forget to make the back stitches in the beginning and the end of the seam. The underarm seam is stitched. We're going to edge it with the overlocker off the camera. Natalie is ironing the edge seam. She's going to press it close. Be very careful and attentive when ironing the details from the right side. Next, we need to press the stitch seam in the cuff open.
На нашем манжете.
Be very careful. The seam is tiny. Do not forget to cut the extra pieces from the seam. It should be thin and soft. Everything should be neat. Tiny accurate seams, perfect details. When the seam is pressed as needed, iron the cuff once again. You can make such sleeves of any fabric you like. The width of the seam is 5 millimeters. Stop stitching right in the point where you started. Don't make back stitches. Be very attentive. Don't cut the threads, they should be long.
Точно так же.
Next, we need to make the second seam the same way. The second seam should be placed 5 millimeters up from the first one. We're making two seams in order to be able to gather the sleeve accurately. You won't be able to do it with just one seam. As I've already said, don't make back stitches. The thread should be long. Next, we're going to gather the sleeve bottom. We pull the lower threads out. Pull them to gather the sleeve at the bottom. Watch the way Natalie is doing it. Be very careful. Do not tear the threads. We need to gather the sleeve bottom in such way that is 25 centimeters wide at the bottom, just like the cuff. Don't hurry. Be very attentive. Have a close look at the way Natalie is working. Pull the two threads at once. This is the only way to gather the sleeve accurately. Make sure that the width of the sleeve and the cuff match. Distribute the gather evenly. Such sleeve would look good in any fabric. If you make it of strong fabric, the sleeve will be pretty tough. If you make it of light fabric, the sleeves will look airy.
Но принцип
We show you the techniques.
принцип обработки,
We want you to be able to sew and wear anything you want.
Поэтому делайте так же, как мы, но
Use your imagination.
варианты. Вот равномерную
The double stitching allows making very beautiful neat frill.
Если бы у вас было
You wouldn't be able to do it
только одна,
if there was
тогда
just
не
one
было бы
seam
такой
in the
высокой
sleeve.
сборки.
Natalie makes two notches
На манжете
in the center of the cuff
и на
and in the center of the sleeve. Join the cuff and the sleeve according to the notches.
шов со швом.
Make sure that the seam in the cuff matches the seam in the sleeve. Pin the details,
Вкалывать булавками.
then tack,
Можете всё
and
сначала
only
сначала,
after that
потом
stitch.
проверить.
When you tack the details, check if they're even. This is a must.
У нас получается
There are two
две
checkpoints.
точки. Это швы,
The seams
шов
on the cuff and the
рукава и
sleeve,
шов манжета.
and the center of the cuff and the
По
sleeve.
центру рукава,
Match
по
these
центру
points,
манжета. Эти две точки
pin the
нужно
details,
скрестить, и потом уже
tack them,
дальше
and stitch.
несколько булавок и
Natalie is not going to tack the
мы готовы
details.
стачивать.
She can stitch them accurately without doing it.
Притачиваем
Natalie is
манжет
stitching the details.
к рукаву. Сборка внизу,
She is stitching from the cuff side.
чтобы зубчатая рейка
The
тоже
feed dog
помогала
also helps to distribute the frill
сборочку
accurately.
красиво. Шов
The width of the seam is 7
было
millimeters.
запланировано
You can make it 5 millimeters wide. It depends on how much you add for it.
аккуратно.
Make sure that you distribute the gather evenly.
Посматривает вниз. Потому что сборочка, она такая.
This is very
она может
important.
куда-нибудь завернуться и будет потом некрасиво. Аккуратно
Make a back stitch at the end.
закрепку. Сейчас можно убрать все,
Next, we need to remove the threads, which we used for gathering the sleeve.
сделали сборку. Все это можно убирать.
Natalie is removing the threads.
Красиво.
The gather looks very beautiful.
Сейчас слегка приутюжим.
Next, we need to iron the seam.
Аккуратно.
Be very accurate. Steam it.
Нам нужно дать направление,
The seam should be directed towards the cuff.
чтобы он смотрел вот туда, вниз, в манжет. И здесь тоже аккуратненько. Красивые такие складочки получились, такая сборка. Нижнюю
The
часть
cuff can be sewn by hands.
подшить вручную. Совместили шов со швом.
We've joined the seams. We are going to tack the detail before stitching.
Вручную.
It should be done for us to be able to stitch the details accurately.
Наташа,
Pin the details first.
булавками. Будьте внимательны.
What we're doing now is very important.
Манжет у вас не
Make sure that the details are accurate.
Никаких не было смещений тканей.
We can start taking now.
Сейчас нужно
Use the thread of the same color for
еще
stitching.
раз проверить, что весь припуск
Make sure that the edge is hidden inside the cuff. We are going to sew the cuff by hands.
нитками в цвет.
Natalie is going to make the invisible stitches.
Будьте аккуратны, будьте внимательны.
Please be very
Одна
accurate
две
and
ниточки с
attentive.
одной стороны. И одна-две ниточки
Watch the way Natalie is working.
с рукава и с манжета.
Make sure that the seam is not visible.
Потом пряталась между швом. Наташа,
The seam is ready. Next, we need to remove the taking and iron the seam slightly.
утюжим. Такая кропотливая работа, но
It's a hard
оно
work,
стоит.
but the result is worth
Потому что
it.
из любой ткани будет красиво выглядеть.
As I've already said, you can make such sleeves of any
Красивое
fabrics.
платье. На некоторых тканях можно
Some fabrics allow doing these seams on a sewing machine instead of hand stitching. Anyway, I think that this way is neater.
одели наш рукав.
I'll pin the sleeve here.
Ну вот.
It looks exactly like we wanted it to.
Такой небольшой фонарь.
Beautiful frill and a narrow cuff. We were glad to show you this
Мы были
technique.
рады показать вам
We're
эту
Ira
технологию.
and Natalie. Be
С вами
different
была
and
Наташа.
beautiful. Subscribe to this channel. Thank you. Goodbye.